You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, world, and welcome to Tales from Hollywoodland, a veritable feast of movies, television, Broadway, showbiz stories, and even a little bit of news and gossip with Julian Schlossberg, Arthur E. Friedman, and Stephen J. Rubin. Today, we're talking with actors Deborah Rennard and Al Sapienza. And now, here's Steve.
Guys, welcome. It's so exciting to have two working actors on the show who certainly have terrific resumes and such classic shows you've been involved with. My first question, actually, I want to go back a little ways. And we've just survived a long period where we went through COVID and, it disrupted the industry and we had the strikes and everything. What did you guys do during the strike period to stay sane? I'm curious.
Deb, you always go first because you're a lady and I'm a gentleman. Go ahead. You answer first.
Well, we had a lot of fun, actually. I don't know if one should admit that. But Al has a boat. So we went boating. We found tennis courts. He tried to teach me how to golf. We took hikes. And we actually, traveled a bit back and forth to LA a few times too, because especially in the beginning, flights were really cheap. Get a flatbed round trip for $500. So we're like, hey, let's go to LA. Let's go visit friends and family there. And so we actually kept ourselves busy. And then we did some, because we have the singing act, we did some Zoom shows.
We should really point out that Deborah was on the number one television show for many years, 10 years, called Dallas. And Al was on, hundreds of shows, actually. I started counting today. It was over 100. I said enough. But most known for, of course, The Sopranos. How did you two guys meet? Did you meet in acting class or in a play? How did it all happen to get you together?
We met in 1984 at the Beverly Hills Playhouse on Robertson Boulevard. I studied with Milton Katselas from 84 to 98. Deb studied with him for 6 years. And that's when I first met Deborah, and she was breathtaking. Literally, I'm not joking, as a person, as an actress, and her beauty. And we didn't start singing. That was 1984. We didn't start singing till 2010. You could tell the rest of the story, Deb.
Oh, well, yeah, we started singing after we had lost touch for many years, and then we reconnected. Actually at our acting teacher's memorial service. And by then now there's emails. So now we're kind of staying in touch with emails. When I moved out to New York in 2010, we met in person. And then Al said to me, people ask me all the time to go sing at these charity events. Why don't you come with me? And so that's what we did. We started singing at charity events, and it went so well that people would come up to us afterwards and say, gosh, you guys are great. Where are you performing? Where's your show? And we didn't have one. So at a certain point we thought, well, let's just make a show. And that's what we did. We literally created a show around the music we love and the stories of our lives and careers, and also what was going on in the world and the country at the time the music was popular.
What kind of music do you love, you guys? American Songbook?
I started out at the Winter Garden Theater in 1977 in a show called Beatlemania. It was the first jukebox musical. It was an incredible experience. Our musical director was Sandy Aguda from Jay and the Americans, with Steve Lieber, David Krebs were producing. So I have a master's degree in Beatles. And in those days, they didn't have VCRs. We had to watch films. We dissected those songs. So I'm a rock and roll pop guy. And you know what? Forget it. I love all music, not just rock and roll and pop. I love classical music. I love Phantom of the Opera. I love, Broadway, West Side Story. So we just picked our favorite songs. We don't care if the audience likes it or not. And we picked the songs that affected us personally, that made us emotional. And then we built our show around those songs. And we have films and videos of the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Kennedy assassination, the Beatles coming. So it's a history show. And it's basically, they're all number one hits. So everyone leaves happy. And we have a great time. I want to go back to answer that question. During COVID, Florida was open. So we were singing down in Florida. We'd go sing in Florida. Deb was a writer. She was writing a pilot and redoing one of her plays. So we stayed busy during the strike, and we also did have a lot of fun on my boat. But anyway, okay, I'm done.
I don't think you're going to be done for a long time.
Al, do you have a theme that is like your signature theme? Do you have my Frank Sinatra My Way type of theme for you?
No, and this is how I feel about my show. Nobody cares about me. Nobody wants to hear how Al Sapienza sings My Way, or I Am I Said by Neil Diamond, or Nowhere Man by the Beatles. I try and recreate that record live so they could get the exact memory from 1964 when they were making out with their girlfriend for the first time, hearing Nowhere Man by the Beatles. So we try to recreate the song with the musicians and our voices exactly how they were recorded.
Well, yeah, and you do. In fact, I was really interested and loved your version of Piano Man, and I loved Deborah's version of Cabaret. I mean, but it's great. Yeah, it's great to see that you do what you call the soundtrack of our lives, because that's what it is. And in today's world, where I would say a lot of us are not as happy as we once were, it's nice to be able to have to go to a show, a nightclub, as you recently did in New Jersey, opening for the Fifth Dimension, and to sit back and say, "Wow, this is the story. This is the soundtrack of my life." It's
and it's interesting you should say that, Julian, because the number one comment we get after the show is people coming up to us and saying, "I can't remember the last time I had so much fun." People, it's such a joyful experience, recreating these songs that everybody loves.
Great music does that to people all over the world.
Yeah.
And consider me, Al, a brother, and Deborah, a brother in great music. I've loved it all my life, and I see where you're coming from. Now, I saw a show in Boston some years ago, which became very successful, ran for a long, long time, it was Broadway. But I got to tell you, I forget the title of the show, but essentially it was just people doing great Broadway songs. And they played in hotels, they played in clubs, but they traveled that show. And there's no question what you're saying. I can tell just from what you're talking about how enjoyable what you do probably is. You're talking about great songs, melody that lingers on. There's no more melody, Al.
No, there's no more melody, and there's no words that mean anything anymore.
It's no lyrics.
You have to go back to those old songs to have real meaning in a song.
Yeah. Well, but the great stuff is always there. So you have a tremendous amount of material you can just keep doing, and I'd love to see you.
We do Somewhere from West Side Story, Sound of Silence from Simon and Garfunkel. I Am I Said, which is about being an artist. We sing Beatles, Barbra Streisand, Neil Diamond, Sinatra, all our favorite songs. And it's just so much fun. And I want to change the subject for 1 second. Julian, I wasn't aware of you, but I just want to say we saw you, speaking not too long ago, and it was fascinating. You're an incredibly interesting man, and your stories were amazing. And I was really moved by that live interview you did. I just wanted to tell you that.
Well,
it was. You're a very interesting.
Will you marry me? That's the
question. You're so entertaining and so interesting. Your career.
It was great. It was a great night.
Yeah, we were so.
And the fact that he recently got Woody Allen to sit down for an hour to talk to him. He is quite a coup maker.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, it's all lovely and nice, but I want to talk to you guys about I want to know about how Dallas came and how The Sopranos came. Did you have a lot of callbacks? Did you get in? Start with Deborah, because as Al points out, we have to be gentlemen here.
Very nice.
10 years on the number one show. Not bad.
Not bad. And Julian, it's kind of unbelievable because I was so young. It was basically my third theatrical audition.
Wow.
I'd been doing some commercials for a couple of years. I was really lucky. I fell into national commercials literally at the age of 18. I got an agent right away and was doing that. And then it was really funny. My agents just called and said, well, I actually was standing in the grocery line looking at the cover of Time magazine. And there was a big article saying the people on the West Coast were pissed off that the people on the East Coast were going to find out 3 hours earlier who shot JR. And I thought, what is wrong with this world? This is insane. Well, funnily enough, next week, my agent calls with an audition for Dallas. And I had actually never seen it. I was busy running around being an actor, auditions and classes and everything. And I had never seen the show. So I was a little bit of a panic, but I went on the audition and my agent said to me, look, you're not what they're looking for, but just go in anyway, because there might be something else you're right for. So I did the audition. It was one of those things that happened, boom, boom, boom. I got home. It was on the answering machine, the days of answering machines, that you got the job. There wasn't even a callback. You got the job. Go to wardrobe. You're working tomorrow. I was like, oh my God. And then I'm calling all my friends going, tell me about Dallas. I don't want them to find out I've never seen it. They'll fire me. So I do the show and I'm on it for, the first day, of course, also was very interesting because Larry sits down. I'm being interviewed as Sly, his secretary. He sits down. He looks at me. He turns around. He looks at Leonard Katzman, the executive producer who hired me. He looks back at me. He looks back at Leonard. He looks at me, goes, this is who you hired? He couldn't believe it. He said, she's so innocent. She looks like a milkmaid. She's so sweet. He didn't expect that casting. Well, cut to 2 years later, I'm having lunch with Leonard Katzman in the commissary. And he tells me I wasn't at all what they were looking for. But when I walked in the door, they got the idea, oh my God, how much more interesting would it be for the biggest villain on television to have this sweet young woman as his assistant secretary, as opposed to someone who's more, worldly or cynical or jaded or what. And he said, and I always say, that's why I got the part, because I wasn't at all what they were looking for. Therefore I was the only person of my type that showed up. So it's a little lesson to actors. Because you never know. They got the idea only when they saw me.
And if you see pictures of Deborah from 1980, she looked like the all-American, sweet, Christian little girl that just, received confirmation. She looked like this sweet American kid.
She looks that way to me right now.
I know her.
Now, it's been a while since I've watched Dallas, and I was a confirmed Dallas watcher, but I think I have memories, Deborah, of your wardrobe. You were not a typical secretary in that. I think they dressed you up a little bit. Is that true?
Well, yeah, and they started pulling me out of the office and putting me in bikinis by poolside. Cliff, everybody decided to use me to get to JR. So Cliff Barnes blackmails me, and then JR finds out about it, and then he turns me into this double agent. And then after that, all these young, good-looking guys try to seduce me to get to JR. So they just kept using me that way. It was fun.
Let's get to Al and the Sopranos. I'm anxious to hear. I'm sure you were not a little innocent, a little fella coming in. Was that your name at the time, Al? Was that your name that you were acting under?
Al Sapienza. Can I go back a little? You can edit this, right? All right. So August of 1984, I walk into this acting class in LA, and there's Deborah. She's 24 years old. She's been on Dallas for 4 years already. It was August of 1984. This is who else was in that class. George Clooney, Patrick Swayze, Anna Alicia from Falcon Crest, Joan Van Ark from Knots Landing, Ann Archer, Kirstie Alley, Joel Schumacher from Woody Allen studied to learn how to work with actors. This class was star-studded, and Deborah is there. She's on the hit TV show. The rest of us, we struggled. A lot of us, I struggled a long time. So we have different stories. So in 1992, I did a play at the Tiffany Theater on Sunset Boulevard, a comedy called, it's unimportant, I can't even remember the name, Misconduct Allowed. And there were 2 theaters there, so I was sharing the dressing room with Jason Alexander. He was doing Give Them Hell, Harry, and he was doing a one-man show about Harry Truman. So he and I became buddies this is 1992. So we became buddies. I went to Seinfeld a few times. You know, we're both really busy. I get a call in 1998. I was in New York at the premiere for Godzilla. I had a small role in Godzilla with Matthew Broderick. I get a call from my agent that Jason Alexander wants me to read for the first movie he's directing called Cherry Pink. And I'm talking fast because I don't want to ruin your whole show with these long stories. But you asked me how I got on The Sopranos.
I did indeed.
So I'm going to go read for Jason for Cherry Pink. And usually I'm very studious. I do my homework. I know who the casting people are. I know the producers. But because it was Jason, I didn't. So I go in and I read. Anthony LaPaglia got the role. I did not. And when I got to the point where I'm always doing a good job. So, but if you're not going to get the role by how the people thank you when you're leaving. Because they're like, that was excellent work. And I knew it was excellent work, but they're not going to have a chance to tell you in 2 weeks it was excellent work. So I knew I didn't get the job. So I'm sulking out of the room. And the casting director says to me, this is exactly how it happened, word for word. She goes, are you interested in doing a cable TV series? And I'm like, nah, I think I want to go downtown and work in a pizza parlor. Like, of course I want to do a TV series. So she goes, we're having trouble casting this role. We don't want a real Goomba. We want somebody who's cleaned up a little. I think you'd be good for this. She goes, go to my office. She gives me the address, get a script, get a tape of the pilot. My assistant Meredith will give you this, and sides. So it's Georgianne Walken, Christopher Walken's wife, and she's talking about The Sopranos. I'm a singer. I think The Sopranos is going to be some stupid musical on cable, So I go to the office. I go upstate to visit my parents, and I watch that pilot with my oldest sister and the 2 of them and my mom and dad, and it just blew me away. It was like better than anything on TV. The camera work, everything was just, so that's when I got a little nervous. So that was a Tuesday. On Wednesday, I read bunch of people at Silver Cup, producers, David Chase, everybody. Friday, I read again. Monday, I read again, and they hired me Monday night, sent me to wardrobe. Tuesday was the first day of principal photography for the series out in Kearney, New Jersey. And I was working that day. I had the scene where I meet Jimmy and we antagonize each other in the car. So it was not my agent, not my manager. It was Jason Alexander. And I remind him of this every time I see him. Like, I owe you so much, dude. It was Jason Alexander that was the reason I got this job. That simple. No other reason.
Well, I think also your ability, but okay, we'll let that go. Yeah.
They once asked George Burns, how do you, at the time he was about 98 years old, how do you explain life success? He says, the first thing you got to do is get out of bed in the morning and just go somewhere. Something will happen. So
2 years earlier, I was working at Showtime doing publicity for the remake of 12 Angry Men. We had a bunch of great actors, Jack Lemmon, George C. Scott, Hume Cronin, and this unknown actor named James Gandolfini. And the Today Show comes out and does a big special on the remake. It was directed by Billy Friedkin, by the way, so it was a pretty classy production. And James says, you don't want to interview me. I'm nobody. But I said, well, James, we need to be a completist here. Everybody needs to be interviewed. And, of course, James Gandolfini, Tony Soprano, my goodness.
He had a special personality. He really was a great guy. He had that element that he could be strangling an innocent person, but you still loved him because he just had this heart inside that, like when you looked in his eyes, he just had this humanity. And very few actors pull that off. Very, very few actors.
No, I said to Alec Baldwin, I said, do you know how to make an actor unhappy? And he said, how? I said, give him a job. And so he thought that was really funny. And he said, it reminds me of that when Jimmy Gandolfini called me. He said, And no, I called him, he said, and congratulated him on this incredible ability to be this man on the number one show. And he said, all he said was, hey, get me up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm tired. I don't want to do the show. I got to go. And he went on and on, moaning and groaning. So it kind of, I guess it's something that is part of the career of an actor, I guess. Yeah.
I'll tell you what Alec Baldwin said to me. I did a movie with him called Thick as Thieves. That was back in around 98, the same year as I got The Sopranos. And I remember on those, he goes, Al, we all wait on lines. All actors wait on lines. He goes, some actors, the lines are really short. Like my line, you got Tom Hanks first. He goes, there's some actors, it's longer. That was his whole philosophy on acting. We all wait on lines. Some are really short and some are really long.
What a great title for a book.
We all wait on lines. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
By the way, that's the main difference between East Coast people and West Coast people. In California, we don't wait on line. We wait in line.
In line. That's true. That's true.
And the Italians in New York cut the lines.
or at least shorten the lines.
Exactly.
One way or the other. Arthur, go ahead.
Deborah, who are some of your favorite singers?
Well, Barbra Streisand was my idol growing up.
Can I say something about that? Just today, I heard on YouTube, I heard her do a little song called Ordinary Miracles. Ever hear it?
No.
What I suggest to both of you, please, Ordinary Miracle, Barbra Streisand, but 1994. Listen to the song. Melody, music, Marvin Hamlisch.
Oh, God.
Lyrics, The Bergmans, Marilyn Allen.
Wow.
Please listen to that song. Okay.
I will. Ordinary Miracles. Ordinary Miracles?
Ordinary Miracle, yes.
Ordinary Miracles. Okay, good. Thank you.
And so you love Streisand. Who else?
I love Liza Minnelli. Today it might be more like Lady Gaga. I like.
You know, Deborah, I was very friendly with a gentleman named Dwight Hemian, who was the king of the specials in the days of Sinatra Man and His Music, Barbra Streisand, Call Me Barbara, what have you. And Dwight told me that as close as he was to her, for whatever it's worth, and all of the musical talent, he believed the greatest of all girl singers was Edie Gourmet.
Wow.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And people sometimes compare us to Steve and Edie. We should really listen to their music.
Why not?
I really haven't listened.
What a great comparison that is.
Much to their music. Yeah.
They compare us to them a lot. And I worked for their son, Michael. He was a musical director on High School Musical, which I was in. I worked for their son, and he told me a lot of great stories. Do you know, I don't know if this is true or not, and I don't like spreading any negative stuff, but I have to tell you, I was told by 50 people that they couldn't stand each other. But on stage, they looked like they were madly in love.
Not true. Not true.
They
not true.
Each other. Oh, good. I'm glad
not
it's
true.
not true.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
what was the first? Go ahead, Julian.
No, you go ahead, Steve.
What was the first song you guys ever sung together?
You Don't Bring Me Flowers.
Deb, was it You Don't Bring Me Flowers, All I Ask of You, or Something Stupid by Sinatra?
You Don't Bring Me Flowers. Okay. Barbra Streisand, Neil Diamond. That was our very first song. We built our whole show on that song, and we open our show with that song.
That's
great. It's a funny thing because we got this concept. Everybody says you got to open with something really upbeat and get the audience going, and we go the entirely different direction. We do a song where we completely ignore the audience. We just sing to each other this beautiful ballad, and I feel that it brings the audience in. That everybody goes, "Whoa! What am I watching? This isn't what I expected." And it's kind of cool, and then Al sings Sweet Caroline, and then I Dreamed a Dream. And so, we just kind of throw it at them. Bing, bing, bing.
What song?
What you both do well is Stop in the Name of Love, because you both look like traffic cops. You're doing a great job. There you go.
I'm just copying Mary Wilson of the Supremes.
Now, what's been one of the more challenging songs that you sing together that you had to do a lot of rehearsal on? Was there one that sticks out in your mind?
Absolutely.
How about you, Deb? For me, it's The Prayer by Bocelli and Celine Dion. How about
you?
you?
Wow.
Yeah. No question. That was a challenging song for us.
We nailed it. I had to practice that for 10 months. And I practiced it for 10 months, like 4 days a week. I'd go to the gym and I would just listen to it and sing. That's a hard song to sing, but we nailed it. Our harmonies are, anyway.
It was a challenging song for me because my stepfather was a amateur opera singer, and he passed away a few years ago of Alzheimer's. And at the end of his life, I had put all his favorite operas on, like an old iPhone. And when I was saying my final goodbye to him, and this is why we sing the song in the show, that song was playing. Mm-hmm. And so I said to him, he was kind of out of it. I didn't even know at the time if he could understand me, but then I found out right after he heard everything I was saying. I said, I'm going to learn that song and I'm going to sing it so that when you hear it, you will know I'm singing it for you. Oh. And I walked out the door. I got to the front door and his nurse ran after me and she said, he's crying. Mm. Oh. I was like, what? And I ran back and he was still like looking like he was so out of it, like he didn't understand anything, but there were tears streaming down his face. Mm. And at that moment, I knew he'd heard everything I said. So I said, Al, this is an amazing song. I've promised my stepfather, we're going to learn this song. I don't care how many times we have to practice it to get it right. We're going to learn this song and we're going to sing it and we're going to do it as a tribute to him and to the other family members in our life that we've lost. So we have behind us, as we're singing it, we have photos and videos of all the family members that are no longer with us.
Music seems to be a way that even people who have Alzheimer's can start singing lyrics, because somewhere in their brain, despite all the muddledness that has happened to them, they remember that. And of course, that's what, I'm not in any way saying that your show is for those people. That's not my point. But the soundtrack of our lives, it really is in many ways the soundtrack of our lives. They are really.
No.
Al, we didn't get your answer to who are the men or women that you like as singers.
My absolute favorite, may not have had the best voice in the world. My absolute number one favorite is Dean Martin. There's no question. Then, of course, Sinatra, Al Martino, Tom Jones.
I'll give you a hint. How about Jerry Vale?
Jerry Vale is fantastic. I love Jerry Vale, Tony Bennett, but I also idolize Paul McCartney. I idolize Paul McCartney for his writing ability. He's just, I adore that man. I adore his songs. I can't believe the amount of songs he's written, the love songs, and I love the Beatles. I think the Beatles it was just an amazing timing of all these elements. The Kennedy was shot, the world was miserable. They came, they brought a new sound, and that sound is still good to this day. It's still the basic sound of rock and roll. Well, now with rap and all that crap, but I just love them. I love them.
Oops.
They're also kings. They're kings of melody. I mean, they were geniuses. We didn't know that at the beginning, but it took a little while, and all of a sudden things started happening. Their stuff was not just razzle dazzle. They were singing great songs. Writing and singing.
Al, in Beatlemania, were you playing one of the Beatles, or were you standing by? Because you're a kid then, I would imagine.
No. I started playing the drums the day after the Beatles won Ed Sullivan, February 4th, I believe, 1964, February 9th. So the next day, my dad went out and bought me just a snare drum and a cymbal. I didn't even have a full drum set. For 5th grade in confirmation, I got a full drum set. I could play every Beatles song before I auditioned for that show. Mm. And remember Murray the K?
Sure, Murray Kaufman, yeah.
Yeah, Murray Kaufman. So, again, I don't want to tell long answers. I don't want to ruin the show, but these answers are long answers. I'll try and make them short.
Look, it's fine. We're tired anyhow.
Yeah,
actually, our audience has told us that their favorite part of our show is the stories.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Oh, real stories. I'm a senior at NYU living in Rubin Hall. And the acting teacher, again, I don't like to say negative things about anybody, but, the acting teacher was Stella Adler and Pearl Pearson and Ron Burris. I thought they were crazy. I thought the people in the class were crazy. I didn't know how I ever was going to make it or make money or how I was going to support myself being an actor. So the whole time at NYU, I played the drums for $10 an hour, and that was a lot of money in those days. For every gay singer on Christopher Street, I was the drummer at every one of those clubs, and I had the greatest time. So Murray, I'm a senior, and I figured I better take an acting class outside of NYU. So I took a class with Joan Dincheco, the daytime head of casting for ABC. And I was like 17 or I was 18. And everybody, I thought they were old in those days. They were like 35, 40. And I was the only kid in the class. So there was one other young person, this 18-year-old gorgeous young actress. So I'd get coupled up with her, and I'd have to go to her apartment to rehearse. She turned out to be the highest paid soap opera actress ever in history, not Susan Lucci, Jackie Zeman from General Hospital. She's 18. She's living with this 50-year-old guy up on Broadway and 72nd. He was the coolest guy I ever met in my life. It was Murray the K. And he took a liking to me. The guy just wanted to help me. So I wrote a song for this guy, Carmine Stippo. He was one of the gay singers on Christopher Street.
Carmine Stippo?
Carmine Stippo.
All right.
And he was one of the coolest guys that I played for. So he made a demo reel. And in those days, they were on vinyl. It wasn't even a cassette. It was on vinyl. So I wrote a song. Murray heard the song, and he was like, this is a hit. This is a hit. So I'm like, okay, great. I'll make a lot of money from the royalties. So he takes me to meet Steve Lieber and David Krebs. They handled Jay Black at the time. Jay and the Americans just broke up, and he needed a hit. So I figured, okay, great. I'll get this money. I'll go out to L.A. I'll study out there. And so I'm all excited, and then nothing. I don't hear anything. So I call up Murray, and this is what was so funny. I call him up and go, Murray, what's going on? And he goes, don't worry, we're working on something. If it happens, we're all going to be rich. And he hangs up the phone. This is a true story. He already was rich. He had a light blue Cadillac. He lived in this high rise. So then in April of my senior year, he makes me go to SIR Studios on 52nd Street. I walk in the door, and these four guys are playing Penny Lane, and I was just stunned. They were fantastic. And the McCartney looked exactly like a photo double for Paul. They were fantastic musically. And then they played Strawberry Fields. The Beatles never played Strawberry Fields live. And that was the beginning of Beatlemania. And he said to me, do you think you could do that? And I said, absolutely. He goes, no. You think you can sit back there and shut up while the people in front of you are the stars? That's how cool Murray was. And I was like, yeah, I could do it. And I got the show. I auditioned in October, and I got the show, and it was one of the best experiences of my life being in that show.
How long did the show last, Al?
I was in it for 5 years. It was on Broadway from May 31st, 1977, I'd say till around 81 or 82. Till 81. I went on tour. I went on the national tour July of 79. So I was on tour from 79 to 82. I was only in New York from October to, but it was, and you know how much fun New York was in those days, in the 70s.
Well, wait a second. I just want to know, what did you do on Beatlemania, in Beatlemania? What were you doing?
I played Ringo Starr, and I played the drums and sang all those parts.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
It only took 10 minutes to get that answer.
40 minutes to get that answer.
Well, listen,
Alice, no short answers.
I tell you, if I needed someone to go on the stand for a jury trial, you're my man. You are.
Hey, Al, you left out of those singers, you left out Bobby Darin. And I'm a big Bobby Darin fan, and Murray the K was the guy who really, was his first big thing with him.
Well, and he wrote that song with Bobby Darin.
His mother did. His mother gave him the title.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And Arthur knew Bobby rather well, in fact.
I knew Bobby and wound up producing the Split Beyond the Sea. So I'm more than familiar with Bobby Darin. But I'm interested that you didn't mention his name. You also left out Vic Damone, but I'm sure you probably had a train of thought.
Of course I love them, but I had to give you like the top 5, top 6. Right?
Martino, underrated Al Martino. Very underrated, great singer.
He was in The Godfather too. Yeah, he was great.
Johnny Fontaine.
Yep, he was great.
But Al, when we were much younger, I asked you about your name and changing your names. I know there's a lovely story there. So would you tell it to us, please? And you can take as long as you want.
Oh, this is a short one. This one's just like a half hour.
We'll get the classic comic version. Okay.
So I'm on the road. Murray's like, Al, it's time to leave the show. Come to L.A. So he moved out to L.A., bought a house. And he rented a room to me. So I go out to LA, and my first agent is Steve Dontonville at the Gage Group, who wound up being the head of talent at ICM. And he's like, you have green eyes, and when I want to talk without a New York accent, I can. So he's like, you don't have to be an Italian. It's limiting. So I changed my name to Alex Statler after the Statler Hotel on 34th Street, that's South Pennsylvania. Because that was my first modeling job in college. So I'm now Alex Statler, and I'm getting stupid jobs with Lindsay Wagner and like playing a lawyer and a teacher. I'm getting these, normal American Jewish jobs, I guess. So The Godfather 3 is being cast in 1988 or 89. And I can't get an audition. I'm 50% Sicilian, the other 50% Napolitan. I know that whole world. So I got really mad. And my dad, I didn't want to be a Goomba. I didn't like it. I grew up around it. I was embarrassed by it. I wanted to be like different. Mm-hmm. And then I changed my name back, and I'm Mikey Palmici on The Sopranos. And I make a name for myself being a Goomba killer, So it's like this. It's pretty funny. So for 9 years, I'm Alex Statler. I was in Pretty Woman and as Alex Statler.
Now, the Sapienzos, are there any other entertainers in the family? Do you come from any lineage?
No, I was the only one in showbiz.
What was the field that your family specialized in?
Mostly criminal activities.
Hey guys, if you don't mind, I want to go back to Deborah. Deborah, I got very friendly with Julie Andrews, and no one ever.
She was an idol of mine too. I kind of froze when you asked me that question because there's so many singers that I love.
Yes,
yeah. I didn't know where to start.
How great is she to a girl like you?
How great is she to a girl like me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I grew up when I saw The Sound of Music. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the sound that came out of her mouth.
How perfect,
her voice, how beautiful it was, and her energy, that beautiful positive energy that she had. She was like an angel. Mm-hmm. She was phenomenal. No,
what's the little song, Deborah, in The Sound of Music, when they're in the gazebo and is Something Good? I believe it was called. Do you know?
Isn't it?
I am 16 turning on 70.
No, not that.
No, another one.
Something Good is one of the little obscure songs of that show and film, sung by her and Christopher Plummer.
Uh-oh.
But Julie used to do it with me in the car. It was ridiculous, Give me 3 bars, anything.
Yeah.
Must have done something good, but da.
That's right.
I must have done something good. Learn that song if you don't know it. You'll kill me.
Okay.
Did you have a little bit of the acting blood when you were in little? Did you do performance school?
I started out. Yeah, I was dancing on stage at the age of 3. My mother taught dance, and so I was one of those people that, like my sister was a year older than me. We were both in class and we were both on stage. She would be petrified and I'd be like, an audience, I'm home. It was really funny. My mother told me it was so crystal clear, even at an early age. So yeah, I was on the stage since the age of 3. And then I got it when I remember in junior high, I didn't know I could sing, but I remember in junior high that we were all standing around. They wanted to put us in groups for choir, and so they were asking us to sing, a few bars of a song, and so I sang a few bars, and everybody's head went like they all were staring at me, and I'm like, what? And you can sing. And then in high school is when I discovered the High School Musical. So all the things I loved, acting, singing, dancing, all in one place. I was like, I'm in heaven. It doesn't get
Where
any
were
better.
you growing up in L.A., Deborah?
In Pacific Palisades, California.
Love
Did you go to Pali?
God.
I did. I went to Pali High, graduated in 77.
I went to Hammy.
No.
No,
You went to Hammy. We were rivals.
We were rivals. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Palisades, a great school.
I'm interested in knowing, Deb, about Days of Our Lives and Sunset Beach. Every time I've met anyone who worked on soap operas, they talk about how difficult it is, and you just have to memorize, and you have to do it quick, and you have no time whatsoever. So I gather you have a good memory. And any interesting stories to tell us before I go to Al?
I always had a good memory, so that was not a problem for me. I was really happy to work on soap, because everybody was so nice. And it's very sad. It's funny that you should mention Days of Our Lives. Drake Hogestyn just passed away like a few weeks ago. And I was his love interest on the show. I was on it for about 9 months. And then the woman sorry, I'm blanking on her name. They were a couple forever. The woman who was his love interest.
Deirdre Hall?
No. Deirdre Hall. She had gone off to have a film career, but it didn't work out. So they were trying these different people to be his love interest, and I was the third one, and it was great. But then she decided to come back, so I got the boot. But I loved it. It was a great lifestyle. You know, there were a lot of lines to memorize, but the nice thing about it was you got there early, you did your thing, you were out by like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and in the course of that, I'd worked out. I'd answered all my fan letters. I'd done all my phone calls. I'd basically done my whole life. So by the time I left, it was free time. So I thought it was great.
Do you like Tootsie?
I love Tootsie.
No.
I love Tootsie. It was a fun movie.
Well, fun. So great about the soap. My God. You know.
Yeah.
Well, Deborah, you were working when you were on Days. And I think, Al, you were on Days as well. You have a Days credit, right?
I have a few, but they were not like her. She was a serious regular. I was a day player. My first experience with Days, I'm a paramedic. I walk into, and I'm a young actor. Like, I shouldn't have opened my mouth, but I walk in and there's a woman with a knife sticking out of her back this high. And my line is, it looks like she got stabbed from behind. I was like, I can't see that. It looked like she got stabbed. Anyway, I didn't last there very long.
Don't go giving those writers notes.
you were both working for my father-in-law, because my father-in-law was the president of the Corday Company.
Oh, my God.
Oh, really?
Talk about a gig. He was an entertainment attorney and was offered the presidency, and he left entertainment law, and such a good thing. I mean, Days is still on the air. It's unbelievable.
It is.
Been on forever, I know.
Been on forever.
You know, I hear Al tell that story about the knife in the back. And when I started out doing some acting. And I played in a play called The Sheriff. And my first line was, I'm tired. I came into the office with my deputy. His name was Pete. So I said, I'm tired, Pete. Tired and hot. The dust is thick today. I thought, who the hell? What sheriff anywhere would say the dust is thick today?
And even Andy Mayberry.
Right. That's right.
Julian, was that an Old West story? Were you back in the Old West?
I would say yes. In fact, so much so that we were doing this in summer stock, and my deputy ran in to tell me that the posse was coming to take somebody out or whatever it was. He runs in, opens his mouth, he goes, sure, and a moth flies in his mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Now, I have to confess, I just couldn't stop laughing. I had to turn up. He's gagging, I'm laughing. They brought the curtain down. It was Roscoe, New York. You can see why Roscoe, New York has never been a place I want to visit. Anyhow, I didn't tell that story at the Lambs.
Al, when you said you did a Godzilla movie, did you have an encounter with Godzilla, or were you behind the scenes?
Oh, I was the first one to get killed in New York City on the East River Drive. I was the taxi driver going up the East River Drive with guns, and then I got killed in another Godzilla movie in 2006.
You don't seem to survive your shows very well, do you?
Ask for 2 or 3 days. I asked for a raise, so they just kill me.
So no wonder you've embarked on singing. It's safer.
That's right.
Well, Al, I know a story that you can tell, and I really like it, which is when you found out you were going to be in your first role on The Sopranos, Whacked. Can you tell your discussion with David Chase?
Yeah. So I'm in this apartment now in Los Angeles that I've had since 1982, and I was living here. This was my primary residence from 84 till I got The Sopranos, and I really miss New York. So I get The Sopranos, and I have this really cool character, and I figured, you know what? He shoots somebody by page 40 in every episode. I don't need to be a tough guy. I shoot somebody in the face. So I wanted to make him a little funny, so I made him half James Caan and half Joe Pesci. Like, he was a little stupid, so he would be funny. It was a little goofy. That's what I deliberately did. So episode 4, when I threw Rusty Irish over the waterfall, David Chase, who is an introverted guy, he doesn't talk a lot. He puts his arm around me and he goes, I really like what you're doing with this character. He goes, I didn't envision him this way, but I love what you're doing with this character. So I was like, this is great. I'm in, they're writing for me. So I leave LA. I rent out my apartment. I don't tell anybody. I don't guilt anybody. So now I'm back in New York, episode 7. Now, remember, we weren't on the air yet. Nobody knew if this was even going to work. Episode 7, he calls me in his office at Silver Cup, and this is the exact conversation. And if you read the Rolling Stone, he did a whole interview on killing me. I walk in, and he goes, you know you're getting killed at the end of this, right? And I was like, I instantly went into shock.
Great story.
And I went into the old Navajo Indian trick of pleading and begging.
Mm.
I did that for you, Jules, because that's a Woody Allen line out of one of his movies.
Al, yeah, go ahead.
I was begging him. I was like, please don't kill me. I said, let's get a guest star for the next 5 episodes as my sidekick. Kill him. So David was like, no, this isn't that kind of show. So he says to me, he goes, why are you so upset? So I said, I don't know. The scripts are great. I love the character. The words just roll out of my mouth. It's effortless. It's so well written. And this is very interesting. These are the 2 things, his reply. It was like dead silence. And then he goes, I don't know if America's going to get the humor. That's the first thing he said. I don't know if America's going to get the humor. To him, this was a black comedy about his mother. And then he paused a little bit longer and he goes, and if I do get picked up for a second season, he goes, I've said everything I have to say on the matter. He was done. That first season was about his mother. When Jim puts the pillow over her face in the final episode, he kills her in the script. They changed it to keep Nancy. They love Nancy, and he kills his mother in the original script.
Yes.
Oh, he suffocates her with the pillow. So this story, his real name is Cesario. He's from Newark, and he had a mean, mean mother. He talks about it all the time. So, I didn't guilt him and say I just moved back. I just looked at it, and my dad, every time I would see him, it'd be like, I can't believe you got killed on that show. And then finally I said to him, Dad, don't ever say that to me again. I was on The Sopranos. That was fabulous. I'm going to build on it. I don't look at it. It's something I'm going to build on, not. And he never said it again. But it was tough getting killed on that show because, especially when it went on the air, it wasn't so bad, until it went on the air in January. And the next day it was bigger than French fries.
Now tell us the name of the character so the people listening might remember.
I had a few names: Mikey Palmici, Mikey P, Mr. GQ. Those are my 3 names. Mr. GQ.
And what was your relationship to the story? What if you were to describe what you were all about in that character and how?
I was a main character the first year. I was his main nemesis the whole first year. Either Uncle Junior and I were going to take over North Jersey, which everyone thought was happening but they were fooling Junior, and I was onto it, or Tony and Paulie and Christopher and Big Pussy were going to take over. So we were fighting to take over North Jersey once Jackie Aprile died in episode 4. So I was always trying to get Junior to let me kill him and fight with him and get Junior to stand up. But they convinced Junior he was in charge, if you remember. But it was a joke. He really wasn't. They just had him as a front man, hoping he'd get busted by the feds instead of them. And they were lying to him. So I was Tony's main nemesis, and then he finally had me killed in the season finale.
But don't you come back a couple of seasons later?
Yeah, and in dreams and nightmares. I was supposed to come back to Christmas show, but I was in London doing a movie. I couldn't do it. But yeah, they had me back a few times just to...
I thought so. Yeah.
Now, Deborah, you were on Dallas for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
How did you meet your end? Were you let go, or did you decide to go do something else?
No, I stayed on till the very end. There was a period fairly early on in which I went off to Turkey, actually, to shoot some movies. And the executive producer, Leonard Katzman, I couldn't believe he did this. He said, I went to him to tell him because I was all distraught. How do I leave the #1 show in television, And he said, we're not going to stand in your film career, your way of your film career. He said, you go off, you do your movies, we'll write you out. And when you're done, you come back, we'll write you back in. And that was just the nicest thing. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, I was on to the very end.
That really is something, that because most executive producers or creators would say, you're leaving, you're out.
Absolutely. I was shocked. They were always so nice to me. But yeah, at the end, my character went off to get married. But I was even in the last episode, I was there till the end.
Who do you, in terms of your friends on the show, you were there for so long, who would you say were your best friends on the show?
Well, funnily enough, I became very close with the other secretary, Deborah Rennard, who was Bobby's secretary, Phyllis. And we're still in touch. We lost touch for a while, but we're still in touch. She actually came to see Al and I at the PNC a couple weeks ago when we opened for the Fifth Dimension. And she and I are now talking about maybe doing a show on our own. And the guy who runs the series of concerts in the summertime, Ron Gravino at the PNC, he's talking about Deb and I doing a show with Lucy Arnaz and calling it like Ladies from Television or something. We're all kind of working.
You guys have a website?
We had a website, but we just didn't keep up with it very much. So what we use now is just Facebook. It's just Al Sapienza or Deborah Rennard on Facebook. Or you can also put in Al Sapienza and Deborah Rennard on Facebook, but it's
you're all over you guys are all over the web. Absolutely.
Yeah. Al's got one of our cards.
Hey, Al, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
And Deb, forget this show. You're under contract with me. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
And Al, do not believe this idea about a movie in Turkey. Don't believe it.
Well, I have a question for our two thespians. Being a comedy writer myself and specializing in movies, can you explain to me why comedy movies have almost disappeared from your local theater, and that it's a genre that was once a staple in our business, but what's happened to comedy? And at a time when we're all wondering whether the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket, everybody wants to laugh more. Why aren't there more comedy movies?
Can I answer that first, Deb?
Go ahead.
In my opinion, it's a sickening reason. And it makes me sick to my stomach. Because if you write comedy now, you'll be canceled. Because if you write to the left, the right will cancel you. If you write to the right, Hollywood will absolutely cancel you. And after Mel Brooks and Woody Allen, who's writing the great comedy? Chris Rock was terrific. George Carlin was terrific. The what's his name? You can't have All in the Family now. You'll be canceled. You can't. We are at a very sick, demented point of the Homo sapiens development. We're in a sick, psychotic, demented place, and it needs to change. That's my opinion. Why there's no comedy. But anyway, what do I know?
Not that you're passionate about it.
What do you
you're passionate about it.
Deborah,
exactly.
Deborah, what do you think?
Well, first of all, when I'm done, I want to hear what Julian has to say about it, because he's worked with a lot of very big comedy writers, and I would be very curious to hear his answer. I don't disagree with Al. I do think that the pendulum in society, always swings, way too far. And I think that people have been in the last few years trying so hard to be so politically correct all the time that it has really affected humor. And it's interesting because I was just, how Jerry Seinfeld came out about how, the Democrats, have ruined humor for us. And all this woke stuff has ruined humor. And then he rescinded that. I saw that he rescinded that the other day, and I couldn't believe it. I was like,
I hope he did, because he's terribly wrong if that were the case. Well, that stuff, that's bullshit. The fact of the matter is that movies are being made for younger people. And younger people, comedy is not what it's about. It's horror. It's about fright. It's about stuff that action, adventure for the world market. Respectfully, Al, I disagree with you. But respectfully, I hear what you're saying, and I don't necessarily agree with it.
And then those kids are stupid, because I used to wait for a Woody Allen movie to come out like it was one of the greatest things of the year, those Woody and the Mel Brooks movies. Can you imagine Blazing Saddles right now if it came back and they talked about trans playing basketball?
Well, things change. I understand that. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of that stuff, the great writers who maybe wrote comedy or maybe are still writing it perhaps for streaming or for TV or something, other than film. But in film today, I've been in the business for a long time. You're talking about the youth market. That's what it's all about. You can't get Tootsie made today. You can't get When Harry Met Sally made today. So, that audience is now watching, particularly since COVID, they're watching at home on their sofa or their bed or whatever. And they're watching it and going to the bathroom when they want to go. And they found out that this is pretty great. That audience is gone for theaters today.
Yeah, I think it's more, where are the good movies? Not just where are the good movies in the movie theater? Because I keep trying to go to a movie theater and see a movie, and there's nothing I want to see. It's so depressing. I used to always look forward to, oh my God, every weekend, let's see what's playing. I want to see the new this, I want to see the new that.
Deborah, there are two markets that they're interested in. One is the youth market, because they come to the movie theater no matter what the hell the weather is, or if it's COVID or whatever it may be, and they're interested in what is going to sell foreign. The world market is humongous. Right. It's exploded the movie industry. And that's action, adventure, spandex, and all the rest.
And most of the movies that are made now do better in foreign than they did in U.S. and Canada.
They all do. It's the foreign market.
And that's the opposite of what we grew up with. Steve, I see what you're saying. To answer you, Deb and Al and Arthur, quickly, the Adam Sandler keeps making movies. They may not be for us, but they are for
Netflix.
And the fact of the matter is that the Larry Gelbarths and the Neil Simons are gone. They're just gone.
Right.
And Judd Apatow tries to do some, and some of them are very successful. I don't think it's gone, but they're certainly not what we all six would go see, by and large.
Right.
I want to make 2 points. The first one is, look at the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Look at CBS, the guy. Look at the monologues. They're all political. Johnny Carson he did jokes about Reagan, but he never took a political side. Merv Griffin never took a political side. Dick Cavett, when Carson did his monologue, it was funny. He made fun of everybody equally. There is no talk show on primetime TV that isn't completely their jokes to the left. And they criticize everyone to the right, which is half of America. It's half of the country. Ohio, North Dakota, South Dakota. So that's number one. There's got to be something there about that, right? Like, those people don't want to watch that crap anymore because they don't think like we think in New York and LA. That's the first thing. The second thing, when the movie started and comedy started, they were guys who didn't give a crap what sold. They had passions for stories. MGM, Warner Brothers, those guys, They wanted to make movies, and they were so great at it that they also made money. They were movie makers. Now you have boardrooms at every one of these places, except maybe Netflix and Apple are a little different now because of their position and they're new. They make things to make money. And true art, you can't make art to make money. You make art to say, I want to say this, and if you don't want to hear it, go screw yourself. That's an artist. That's a writer. A writer will write what he wants. A writer that sits down and goes, what script can I write that's going to sell this week and what's in the news? He's not a writer. He's a car salesman. So I think we don't have many real passionate artists like Woody Allen. Mel Brooks was a genius. Woody Allen was a genius. Where are these guys? Seinfeld's funny. I mean, and Curb Your Enthusiasm is funny. But I think we're in a bad time as a society. It's just, and again, I'm not saying I'm right. I hear what you're saying, but to make movies just to make money, go sell drugs, go sell cars. If you're going to be an artist, be an artist. But I'm just a schmuck idealist, you know?
Al, no, we really appreciate your thoughts on this. It's a very controversial topic. Well, we've come to the end of our show. Al and Deborah, you've been wonderful guests.
Oh, we had so much fun.
No, it's just fabulous. And I'm going to turn over to Mike, our producer, with some closing comments.
Okay.
Thanks. That was a lot of fun. Thank you for having us.
Deborah and Al, it was awesome to have you on the show tonight. It was really great. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you.
You've reached the end of the episode of Tales from Hollywoodland. Always remember, we couldn't do this without you. We want to hear from you, so please write us anytime at talesfromhollywoodland@gmail.com. Remember, you can find us wherever fine podcasts are found, and now you can even find us up on YouTube at no extra cost. If you made it this far into the episode, why not subscribe and give us a thumbs up? Or if you're listening to us, please give us 5 stars. If you're into social media, please check us up on Instagram and Facebook. Before we get out of here, let's check with the guys and see what's happening this week on their podcasts. Julian, who are you talking to this week?
This week is the fabulous, fantastic casting director, Juliet Taylor, who has cast over 100 movies, including almost every big one. Started with The Exorcist, did Mississippi Burning, Working Girl, it just goes on, and 43, count them, Woody Allen movies, Al. For you.
Wow. Wow.
He was the greatest. He's the greatest.
Steve, what's cooking over on Saturday night at the movies?
This is going to be one of my favorite episodes. I got music, story, and John Burlingame to talk about TV themes and what has happened to the TV themes that so colored our youth.
Dun, 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 dun.
Name that tune for $5, sir.
Addams Family.
We could do that all day long. So we're looking forward to that.
That is awesome. It's coming up on next week on our podcast.
Well, I can just say that we're going to have a man who's taken the silent movies and put the rock and roll big songs as the score. It'll be a very interesting show, and I'm going to show up for it.
Awesome. Or are you going to be silent like the films?
Never, Mike. Never.
On behalf of Steve, Arthur, and Julian, thanks for listening. This is your producer and announcer, Mike Faber. We'll see you here next time on Tales from Hollywoodland. Your Hollywood adventure starts right here.
Hey everybody, this is Jim Adams for Monster Attack. As we head into our 9th season, we've taken a little bit of a change in direction. Now we're looking at the movies that I witnessed when I was in high school, college, and my early adult years. Hey, come experience that experience with us each and every Monday at 5 p.m. on the ESO Network. Monster Attack, the podcast dedicated to old monster movies.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store. which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.